Hi friends, and welcome back. It's me again, Miss Haley. Today, I would love to invite you for a story. And our story today is Little Red Riding Hood, which is retold by Bonnie Dobkin. Shall we begin? Once upon a time, a little girl lived with her mother and brother in a small cottage by the edge of a forest. Her favorite piece of clothing was a long red cape with a soft, silky hood. She wore it so often that soon everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. One day, Little Red Riding Hood was bored and looking for something to do. You could sweep the floors, said her mother, who was busy painting the fence. No, said Little Red Riding Hood. I don't think that's what I want to do. You could help clean the yard, said her brother, who was busy chopping wood. No, said Little Red Riding Hood. I know that isn't what I want to do. Then you could go visit your grandmother, said her mom. You're old enough to go by yourself, and you haven't seen her for weeks. That's exactly what I want to do, said Little Red Riding Hood. Grandmother lives on the other side of the woods. It will be an adventure. So Little Red Riding Hood's mother packed a basket full of treats for the girl to take to her grandmother. Just remember, said her mom, the woods can be very dangerous. So when you leave, please go straight to grandma's and don't be late. She won't listen, said her brother. Yes, I will, said Little Red Riding Hood. Of course she will, said her mother. Oh, and dear, something else before you go. Only talk to those you know. She won't listen, said her brother. Yes, I will, said Little Red Riding Hood. Of course she will, said her mother. Oh, and one last thing, sweetheart. From the path you should not stray, or you could get lost someday. She won't listen, said her brother. Yes, I will, said Little Red Riding Hood. Of course she will, said her mother. Goodbye, dear. Give your grandmother a hug for me. Yes, Mom, said Little Red Riding Hood. Then she headed out the door, down the path, and into the forest. There was so much to see in the woods. A sleeping owl, a giant mushroom, an amazing spider web. Then Little Red Riding Hood remembered what her mother had said. When you leave, please go straight to grandmother's and don't be late. But, thought Red Riding Hood, Mother surely would want me to enjoy the forest. So she stopped and she looked around. Just then, a dark shape stepped out from one of the trees. It was a wolf, and he was smiling a charming smile. Well, hello, little girl, said the wolf. Isn't this a lovely day? Little Red Riding Hood remembered what her mother had said. Something else before you go. Only talk to those you know. But, thought Red Riding Hood, he seems like such a friendly wolf. Mother surely wouldn't want me to be rude. Hello, Mr. Wolf, said Little Red Riding Hood. Yes, it is a lovely day. And you seem to be such a delicious, by which I mean delightful child. The wolf's smile grew even bigger. What might your name be? Everyone calls me Little Red Riding Hood, said the girl. A splendid name, said the wolf. And where might you be headed, Little Red, if I may call you that? You may, said Little Red Riding Hood. I'm bringing my grandmother this basket of treats. She lives just on the other side of the forest. How kind of you, said the wolf. In fact, wouldn't your grandmother like a lovely bouquet of wildflowers as well? There are some just over that hill down by the edge of the river. Red Riding Hood remembered what her mother said. From the path you should not stray, or you could get lost someday. But, thought Red Riding Hood, Mother surely would want me to bring grandmother some flowers. That's a wonderful idea, Mr. Wolf. I'll pick some right away. And she scampered off into the woods. Goodbye, Little Red, said the wolf, and he called after her. I'm sure we'll meet again very soon. And then he whispered, by which I mean for lunch. I wonder what's going to happen. The moment Red Riding Hood disappeared, the wolf dashed down the path toward grandmother's cottage. He tapped lightly on the door. Grandmother, he said in his best little girl voice, it's me, Little Red Riding Hood. Little Red? Really? How wonderful. Grandmother flung open the door. Wait, she said, you're not Red Riding Hood. Sadly, no, said the wolf, by which I mean goodbye. And he swallowed the grandmother in one big gulp. And now, said the wolf, patting his tummy, I'll wait for dessert. Sometime later, Red Riding Hood came out of the woods. She was dirty and rumpled, and there were burrs in her hair. It was much harder to find the path again than I thought it would be, she said. She was surprised to find her grandmother's door wide open. She stepped inside. Grandmother, are you home? Yes, dear, came a scratchy voice from the bedroom. But I'm in bed. I'm afraid I have a nasty cold. Red Riding Hood followed the voice into the bedroom. The curtains were closed and it was very dark. Grandmother was wearing a floppy nightcap and the blankets were pulled up past her nose. Red Riding Hood moved towards the bed. Grandmother's eyes looked really odd. Why, Grandmother, she said, what big eyes you have. The better to see you with, my dear. Come closer so I can give you a hug. Red Riding Hood took another step and saw two odd triangles poking up under the nightcap. And Grandma, what big ears you have? The better to hear you with, my dear. Can you come a bit closer still? Just then, the blanket slipped from the grandmother's face, revealing 2 rows of very sharp teeth. But Grandmother, said Red Riding Hood, what big teeth you have. The better to eat you with, roared the wolf, leaping out of Grandmother's bed. Red Riding Hood screamed. Ah! She ran out of the bedroom, through the main room, and into the kitchen, slamming doors behind her. She clambered into a cabinet and yanked the door shut. Oh, why did I not listen to Mother, she thought. If I hadn't stopped in the woods, I wouldn't have met the wolf. If I hadn't talked to the wolf, I wouldn't have left the path. If I hadn't left the path, I wouldn't have been late to Grandmother's. Then none of this would have happened. In the kitchen, she could hear the wolf calling to her. Where are you, Little Red? He said. There's no need to hide, by which I mean I'm going to find you and eat you, no matter what. Just then something crashed. A voice yelled. Dishes smashed. The sounds got louder and louder and wilder, and then everything was quiet. I wonder what happened. Little Red Riding Hood peeked out from the cabinet. There stood her brother, his axe in one hand. He was helping Grandmother step out of the wolf. "Thank you, dear," said Grandmother. "It was really dark in there." The brother looked at Little Red Riding Hood. "I knew you weren't going to listen." Little Red Riding Hood scrambled out of the cabinet and gave her brother a big hug. "You were right," she said, "but I will from now on." Then Red Riding Hood, her brother, and their grandmother all sat down together to eat the treats from the basket. The end. Thank you so much for listening to Little Red Riding Hood with me today, friends. I'll see you soon.